Hi, everybody. This is Andrew Gadomski, and welcome to the Reciprocity with AG podcast. And I'm here with one of the speakers who's coming up for the Talent Acquisition Week virtual program that's done once a year. And then there's also an in-person conference, which is done in the winter, usually the last week of January, first week of February, which I've been affiliated a long time with. But Aaron joins us because he has a session coming up, and we want to make sure that we're featuring all the goodness that Aaron is going to be talking about and learn more about him. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
My pleasure. Aaron, why don't you go ahead, do the full narrative about yourself and take a few minutes to explain to the audience all the goodness.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll give you the bridge version. It's so funny. You talk to folks that have been doing what we do for a really long time. Like nobody went to college to be a recruiter. Nobody took recruiting classes or got their master's in talent acquisition. Although I would argue you and I have probably somehow achieved that just by doing this for so long. I don't know. It's you get a medal or what, I don't know. But I've been in the TA space for 16 years. I actually spent the first 10 years of my career in marketing. And like many, my entry point into recruiting was through employer brand. We talked in the pre-call a little bit about how long ago 1999 was. This was probably a decade later, 2009. I stepped into employer brand. I did that as a sole producer at a large Fortune 50 company and really learned recruiting from the ground up. A couple of years later, through attrition and reorgs and things of that nature, I took over programs, which can mean different things in different places, but learned talent acquisition from a campus standpoint or a global recruiting standpoint or sourcing and all those different things. And just as time has gone on, my role at TA has morphed and grown. I currently lead strategic talent acquisition programs at Providence, spent some time in finance, spent some time in veterinary medicine, some time in crypto. So a pretty eclectic background, really.
What's your session about coming up at Talent Acquisition Week?
Yeah, you mentioned the in-person session. So in January in San Diego, I spoke on using AI and sourcing, and something that's near and dear to my heart. Sourcing has been part of my purview for probably 15 years and something that I've really embraced. And so we did a primer, like a beginner's course for AI and sourcing. I'm taking that a step further for the virtual session. Like now, once you've embraced this, where do we go next? And how do you do it in a very human-centered approach?
That's excellent. I think that there's a lot of confusion in the market. There's confusion and there's channels, right? And I've akined it to, it's a hurricane forecast model. We're probably all moving in this direction. And the thing, where you're going to land is somewhere between, in the United States, between South Carolina and New Jersey. You're probably going to end up somewhere in there. There is the high possibility, though, that you will just swing back out into the Atlantic Ocean and there will be no landing. There will be no adoption. And I think that the marketplace doesn't like when I say things like that, but the level of adoption, I am reluctant to offer guarantees that what you're doing now and what you're trying now will sustain for years. Given the advancements that artificial intelligence is executing, it's clearly going faster than Moore's law. And so it's great that you're going to be talking about it in terms of where it is as of January this year and then July. And I imagine that there's been quite a bit.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I am not a procrastinator by nature, but when it comes to writing a presentation or giving a talk, like I will put that off. And so when I was writing my January deck or my January presentation, it moved so fast inside 90 days. I had to redo my presentation 2 or 3 different times because that's how quickly the space is evolving.
Yeah, I do the same thing with regulation and auditing, where I'll only do the TA Today series. I'll do it a week before. And I just did one earlier in June, and my next one's coming up in a couple of weeks. And I have to reframe it because of what the Senate is doing and what the EU is doing. And it's just you have to stay on top of these things. But that being said, we've got a set of questions that we always ask our guests. When I say we, I mean me. I love how people say we when they mean themselves.
100%. You just want to make it sound like it's collaborative, even if it's just the voices in my head. I always say we as well.
And I was taught to reduce as many I's as possible in the sentence.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a trait or a technique you learned from someone else and that you've now taken that and executed it for success for your own work.
Great question. Spent 23 years of my career at one employer. Thought I was going to get the gold watch and the toaster. Was really happy. Had no intent on leaving. If you listen to this, it'll probably put a smile on his face. I'll leave it unattributed. But somebody had come along who had become my leader outside the organization. And one of the first things he had said to me was, "Your loyalty to this place is probably your biggest fault. Your scope is really outside the four walls of this place is very limited. And you think you know what you do, and you do inside the four walls of this place, but really there's this massive world out." And it really got me to thinking about mastery of a role inside one org versus mastery of a role or a function, organization agnostic. And so it kind of set me on this journey. I've worked in a few different places since then. And I just think about my ability to look at talent acquisition in a more holistic manner from a couple different perspectives, different industries, different ways of doing it, publicly held companies, privately held companies, pre-IPO companies, recently post-IPO companies. I did some consulting, and I'm so thankful for that perspective. And I'm not telling folks who are listening to this, if you've been somewhere a long time, to get up and leave, but I do encourage you to have a hunger for knowledge outside of the things that are made up of your day job. And really, for me, it was crawl, walk, run type thing. I started getting very interested in things outside my organization, attaining as much knowledge as possible. I became a board member at the Talent Bread Alliance, and that gave me exposure to all these different organizations. And that really sent me down this path that I've been on. That said, I'm super happy to be where I'm at now. I think I've done enough bouncing around the past 4 or 5 years to satisfy that. But I think I'm so much more effective at my role and my ability to make well-informed decisions because I've just seen so much in that time. And if this person had not pushed me, but not encouraged me to expand my scope, I never would have done that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've told people over the years, if you were to look at your data associated with your communications, which is when you're networking associations, which is a fascinating data science, 80% of your communication is with about 15 people.
Yeah.
When you're in a job. And so the question is, are you working for a company or are you really just working with a team?
Yeah.
And then the question is, I want to change my job. And I'll challenge people to say, why don't you change your team and realize that you can go and work for another company, but if the team is very similar to where you came from, then you're still playing the same game.
Yeah.
And now that might mean more money, more responsibility. It aligns with the fact that your children will be able to go to a better school. Like motivations are always unique, but I'm a big fan of the idea of what you're saying, which is constantly looking outside the scope, but more importantly, or looking outside where you're growing your knowledge around team dynamics. Okay. Fun question. Food. Tell me about a food that you make, you buy for others that you believe makes them feel love from you. Or tell me about something that you've received that made you feel love for another.
God, great question, Andrew. Anybody that hears this that knows me is going to giggle immediately when I say this, but I'm Croatian, and the first thing Croatians do is just tell you how Croatian they are. And the quickest way to a Croatian's heart is through their stomach. It's literally food is love in that culture. And so growing up, I didn't know any other way. I since then met folks, have friends who food was very transactional. It's fuel. I eat it. It's done. I don't sit and think about it or sit and obsess about the meal I'm having hours out. I'm thinking about what I'm having for dinner in 3 days. That's how Croatians work. And so all the men in my family cook. And probably one of the greatest compliments I can get was like, "Hey, that's good." And I'll give the most recent example was Father's Day. Like I cooked for my family for Father's Day, and they're like, "Why are you cooking at Father's? You should be taking it easy." I'm like, "Cause that gives me joy. I love doing that."
Right.
Now, ideally, I could be a terrible cook, Andrew. People could be just saying this to be nice, but I love the care and the time it takes to make a meal. It could be anything, really. I think I barbecued steaks. Fancy days, we brought the charcoal grill. But the time it takes, the 2 hours of prep, the actual hour and a half of cooking, the hour of sitting or the hour and a half of sitting down and having wine and whatever else that accompanies that meal, it's that entire experience for me. That's how I like to show love. And I think some of it's cultural. It's probably hardwired into me, but some of it, I just love it. I love the craft of putting an experience together for folks.
Yeah, there's something to be said about the investment of time, which is the equation of doesn't matter what I serve you, I have spent the time to I have used that time for you. I get that. So how do you back to work? How do you keep a focus at work? And is that a model? If it's a model, where did it come from?
Yes, it's a great question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. As I get older, my focus gets a little fuzzier. Like I have to create more guardrails and systems for myself to stay focused. And it could be just a function of the world we live in, right? The world is nonstop. The news cycle never ends. We live in kind of an insane place right now. And so if you're not somehow connected to the world, you could have missed goodness knows what. That said, I give myself very strict boundaries. I'm like, I get a little bit of phone time to catch up on what's going on in the world in the morning. I get a little bit for a break at lunch, and then I'll give myself a smidge before dinner before I start cooking. And then how do I organize myself in my workday? Do you attack IM first? Do you attack email? How do you stay focused? Well, when I was younger, this is terrible. When I was younger, I could be on calls all day, and I was, and I could do my work at the same time. I don't have the same focus to be able to do two things well at the same time anymore. It's just a fact of life. So I have to be very structured about how I approach my day. I'm anti time block. I know some people are, and that's great. For me, I just need to be available more, and I can't block out 3 hours of my day to do the work. So I need to fit the work in. But when I'm doing it, I need to be 100% committed. You can't do anything 50%. And
Right.
especially if you've got a limited amount of time to do it, like I need to be very focused. I need to know what I need to do and what the final output's going to be, and then ship it off and move on to the next thing. And it sounds strict. It is strict because it has to be, because I feel like if I didn't have this infrastructure to do it, I would be like, oh, I'm on Twitter for an hour. And oh God, I got to do a presentation and I'm working till 8 in the evening. And that's how I care for and protect my personal as well.
Yeah. You had asked me about my thoughts on it. And I'll admit that my models have changed over time. Some of that's just life cycle events.
Yeah.
When my child was much younger, all of a sudden working at 11 o'clock because a baby is up made sense, or you can't fall asleep. But I can't do that anymore. And I think ultimately my most recent adjustment is concentration blocks, where it's an hour and a half at a time. And I have a set of tasks that are going to get executed that are probably familiar within that hour and a half. And I deliberately stop for 30 minutes. And there's no phones. There's maybe a quick check on social media and check my messages and those types of things. But walk, quiet cup of coffee, cup of tea, something, and catch my breath, if you will. Because a lot of the work that I do is mathematical. And so
Yeah.
you can't do that. Maybe I could have done that 10 years ago, 8 hours straight. Now I'm just tired when I do that.
And that's why I asked you the question, because I so feel that. It's just my stamina for that kind of thing is just not what it used to
Yeah, I get the, how are you seem like you're out of it from my family and it's 6 o'clock. I'm like, I worked hard. And they're like, you sat in front of a computer all day. That doesn't mean that you didn't work.
be.
I
Yeah.
just don't have the stamina. Okay. Movie, play, musical, poem, or book. Name one that speaks to you that you've experienced more than once. So you read it more than once, you've seen it more than once. And if you had a recommendation, if it was recommended to you, great. But tell us.
It's an amazing question. I think I spend an inordinate amount of my time talking about media content, right? Like movies, music, whatever it may be. I go to a lot of concerts. There are certain acts I've seen. I'm going to date myself. The 80s new wave band OMD, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. I think I saw them for the 7th time last week.
Wow.
They're well into their 60s. They're delightful, and it makes me feel good. It takes me back to my youth. Yes, it gives me hope that these people that are a bit older than I am can still do what they do and dance around on stage for 2.5 hours. I love that. There are movies, and my daughter's of an age, she'll be 21 in December, where I want to impart my taste in movies on her. And to watch her pick up on some of these things and watch them several times. It's baseball season, so I had her watch Major League. She's probably watched it 3 or 4 times at this point. She loves it.
Yeah.
And for me, that is comfort. That's familiarity. It's something I know I enjoy. I can't multitask, be on a call and do my work. I always have something on the background. So it's either a movie, a podcast, music, something is happening. And I am in a way ingesting that. And in a lot of ways, it actually makes me work better because it stimulates a part of my brain that somehow translates into how I do my work. It keeps me creative. And so there is a list of books and movies and whatever it is that I've probably got a top 15, top 20, and I'm constantly and re-ingesting them. And it's funny because I'll see something, the movie Heat, for example,
Okay.
and I'll watch it for the 20th time. And on the 21st time, I'll be like, look at that. I totally missed that the first 20 times. And I do love that.
Yeah. So a couple of reflections on what you just talked about. Major League is one of my favorites. I'm a big baseball movie person, but I watch a lot of baseball. I'll watch from March until the last week of October. I wouldn't be surprised if I watched 200 baseball games.
Yeah.
So that is a thing. But for my child, I say, look, every time you do this, you owe me 20 push-ups, which is straight out of Major League, right?
Yes.
Whatever it is. Now, she never does the push-ups.
Yeah.
I'm like, you need to start doing the push-ups because it's just good for you. She's starting to get it. And now with all the movies that I really love, I just fast forward to the good montage that I like.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the movie Invincible about Vince Papale. I just go to where they go to training camp and I watch like 12 minutes. And I'm like, that's good. I wanted to see that scene. And that was harder to do when we were kids. The VCRs now on Netflix or whatever is pretty easy.
Or you can on YouTube, like all the iconic parts of the movies that we all love.
Playlist. It's all done.
Yeah. Just put it like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the final scene in The Professional, whatever it may be. You can literally just put in your greatest hits, and we will do that sometimes. Just have on in the background.
Yeah. Okay. So sometimes we have to brief out. So given your background, especially in the branding, you don't get a lot of time to brief out to somebody else on a topic. And so you quickly pull together a presentation. You quickly pull together talking points. Tell me how you do that.
Yeah. And I think that's something that took me some time. Not everybody wants to know all the ingredients are in the cake. They just want to know it tastes good. And so how do you pull together the most salient points? For me, it's always really 2 things. One is I need to be fully aware of what my audience wants to get out of this, what's in it for them, like what's really going to resonate most with them. And it's really different. It's hard to trot around the same presentation to 10 different stakeholders and expect it to resonate away or at least resonate equally with each of them. So I do try to tailor my content to the audience so they understand why we are doing what we're doing and how it's going to benefit them most. I think the second thing is too, and that's coming from marketing into branding, into TA operations of programs, or even leading your own recruiting team. Everything's got to be based in data. I'm sure you appreciate this, Andrew. Creative types are terrible at math as a rule. I have forced myself to be very committed and devoted to telling stories through data and helping folks understand that the promises or the creative notions that we bring over here actually turn into actionable data and performance down the road. And once you have a track record of doing what you say you're going to do, and it doesn't mean you know the future, and it doesn't mean everything or 100% of what you try to deploy works 100% of the time. That said, a long history of providing ROI, providing value back to the business and helping the organization perform because they're staffed, that speaks volumes and really helps you keep you talked about your forum of 18 people, your team, your stakeholders, the people that depend on you to do your job and do it well, keeps them engaged and keeps their full faith in you.
I really like that response. It's very grounding. when you're using the data and you're talking about business impact rather than how you did it and how hard it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. People don't care
yes.
how hard it was. Typically, they
Nope.
really
No
don't.
one
Yeah.
cares how you made the sausage. They care how good it tastes.
Exactly.
So when you think about when you were, doesn't matter how old you were, was what class, formal class, grade school, high school, personal, professional, made you raise your hand the most? You were the most interested in that topic, and you were, oh, B. What was that class for you?
Yeah. I've thought about this quite a bit, probably because I've gotten on in years. I decided, and for the longest time, I wanted to be a teacher until I realized that my tastes were not aligned with what a teaching profession could provide. But I realized over time that my interest, and this plays itself out as I lead teams now, my interest was never topical. It was always the teacher. They were the thing that made me interested in what it was I was learning. And I'll go back to a teacher I had in high school. I was a teenager, probably knew everything. I'm sure I made my parents nuts and my teachers equally. Definitely outspoken. Just comes as a surprise to no one. And I had a journalism teacher named Gene Staley, who I still see to this day. We're talking
Yeah.
30 some odd years down the road. I just saw him in December. And he challenged me in a way. And I fancied myself a good writer. I think I write okay. As my mom would say, I can turn a word when I need to. But he challenged me in such a way where it had nothing to do with the writing anymore. It really challenged me in how I thought and how I did the thing I said I was going to do. Had nothing to do with the class, which I learned a ton in his classes. He did absolutely make me a better writer. My articles, I'm sure, were fairly pithy, but that plays itself out in how I lead teams now, how I organize my thoughts, how I, in such a way that's not only interesting to me, but how it draws in an audience and helps shows them, like I said, we were just talking about just now, like the what's in it for them. All of that I learned when I was 14, 15 years old. And anybody that tells you that the things you learn in high school don't really provide any value later on in your life. I think if you open yourself up or you have teachers that took the time to connect with you. I had a biology teacher that taught me more about biology. I'm into like fish ponds because of this man. I never
Okay.
would have done that if it was not for meeting him at a very kind of impressionable age and him taking the interest in me and teaching me how to do these things.
Aaron, this is gonna be probably a break point, and so we're gonna do two parts. So just so you know. Okay, we're back with part two with Aaron, and we're now gonna move into our seventh question. How do you create community amongst a team? Or, and you have to pick one. Don't do the thing where you pick both. Tell me about how you diffuse conflict and then strengthen connectiveness in that same team.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with team chemistry. You're a baseball fan. I'm a baseball fan. I watch Giants fan, but
Okay.
yesterday was a huge day. And watching somebody compose a team isn't entirely different than folks that we work with, right? I'm obsessed with team chemistry. I'm obsessed with getting the best out of everyone. And I will admit, I probably not mastered like how to diffuse chemistry issues. That said, the thing for me that is, I feel has always led to high performing teams is taking interest in the people you work with. And I don't do that as the means of some kind of end. I'm genuinely interested in the people I work with. I'm interested in hearing the things that you're talking about yourself, right? The fact that you watch 200 baseball games a year. Those types of things, those connection points, I think make for closer knit teams. They create better understanding. And down the road, if there is conflict, I'm not going to answer that question. But if there is conflict, I do think it smooths out some of those rough spots because the entire team infrastructure is built on this foundation of understanding.
When we talk about technology, and technology as a definition constantly changes, but what do you think will be absolutely retired or almost completely retired in the near future? And how will that retirement enable us to increase the humanity, increase the reciprocity that we have with each other?
That's a good question. I don't know about you. I was always fancy myself as like an early adopter of technology. So I've got a closet. It's a little to my right, full of dead technology, stuff that does not matter anymore. And I almost
Right.
keep it as like an homage to embracing the past, but also being open to whatever comes next. I detest manual processes. And this could be in your life, it could be in talent acquisition, it could be anything. And I think we're getting to a point with AI that I'm already doing this, where there should be nothing I have to do manually,
Hmm.
or I have to, even if it's semi-manual, where I have to touch it with my hands. Like it should just be like an always on thing. And so this plays itself out in talent acquisition, obviously. You think about sourcing, you think about running programs like employee referrals or whatever it may be. Those are highly manual processes. They have been in the past. I know at large organizations to run a good employee referral program, it could take 3 or 4 FTE. Now with AI and automation, there's really no reason to even have it be a full-time FTE. And so embracing that, and will it go easy? Like what's the hangover going to be from that? I think
Hmm.
there are many folks, and it's not even a recruiting specific thing, who kind of embrace or hang on to with a death grip their manual processes because that equals job security in their minds. When I would argue it's the opposite. I think the people, and people talk about it all the time, I talk about it all the time, embracing automation is only going to make you more valuable because it sets you aside from those who have not. And just you think about the volume of work you can do now, it's insane. It really allows you to accelerate the volume of work in addition to the quality of work you can provide.
You're talking about what you're just talking about now in terms of the literacy associated with AI and automation. I agree with you. I think that by reducing manual processes, yes, you're acquiring uh, AI skill, automated skill, the use of templates, and the reduction of manual work where, hey, I did a really good job. I did a lot of hard work today, a lot of tasks, and I manually checked a lot of boxes. I find myself now asking myself, is the work that I'm about to do, can I do it in a different way using these new technologies such that I can never have to do it the other way again? Now, that's a very interesting discipline because the it might take as long for me to do the investigation and then the build to do the work I could have just done
Mhm.
manually. And I do think that over time, it actually will increase retention for individuals if they know, hey, I'm working in an environment that encourages me to reduce manual processes. And at the end of the day, I'm energized. Not just, oh, I had a good hard day's work. It's no, I got a lot done, but I've got a lot of energy because I had automation rather than manual frustration. I really like that one idea of manual processes.
100%. And another way of thinking about this, Andrew, is if there's certain things that are very manual in the nature of your job or your life for that matter, and you enjoy them, keep doing them. I'm not saying do away with those, but if there's things you detest, things you hate, things that you put off because you just don't, that you just doesn't bring you joy, automate that. Do not surround yourself with things that do not bring you joy. Find a way to automate that and really focus on the things that you love.
That's genius. This idea of the and the first thing in the morning, and I don't know where I got this, but someone said you always got to swallow the frog
Yeah.
first thing in the morning, do the hardest thing. And so I guess the question is, should I figure out how to automate the hardest thing before I even do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like that. So, how have you helped another colleague who is struggling with the work life balance? As I throw up air quotes that no one is seeing because we're audio only.
Yeah, I think asking me to help with work-life balance is probably the wrong person. And I think that this plays itself out in a variety of different ways. If you're not good with relinquishing control, that's a symptom of not maintaining a healthy work-life balance. If you don't trust easily, that's a symptom of not maintaining a work-life balance. I think because I have gotten further along in my career. I remember the vacations I worked through. I remember the days off I bypassed. I remember the business trips I went on and spent birthdays in hotel rooms. And I think back, like, for what? What exactly did that achieve? Did the sum of all
Mm,
those sacrifices equal anything? And my answer is no, it absolutely did not. And so now, having years to look back on that, it does give me a perspective when I find somebody kind of falling into some of the same traps I did, or that looks like they're going to make a sacrifice that I know is not going to make a difference. I think if you're a leader, you have a responsibility to say, hey, I know what you're trying to do. It's not going to matter. Take the day, enjoy your birthday, spend the vacation with your family, unplug, do the thing. That said, I there are certain leaders I've worked for who absolutely do not respect your work-life balance. There are some that I have, including my current leader, who's amazing at this, where there's an expectation that I'm taking my time, you take your time, maintain your
right.
work-life, because you'll come out on the other side, you'll be a better asset for the organization, you'll be a better asset for me, and you'll be happier.
Yeah. When you mentioned some of the influences you have and orchestral maneuvers in the dark. So if it's not them, if you were to create a music group, what kind of music would you play? And who do you want to listen to it? And give me a band name.
Ah, it's good. I have these, I'm so musically curious with zero musical gifts. I can't sing. I tried to play the guitar, I don't know how many times. I took piano lessons when I was a kid. I'm the least, I have no rhythm. I went to a concert night before last and like, I feel it. I have zero rhythm. Insane to me. That said, I have these delusions of grandeur where like I'm on stage and I'm singing or I'm playing guitar, the things I can't do. And the feeling I get doing that, I get goosebumps. Like I'm clearly like, that's something that speaks to me in a way. That said, I could never narrow myself down to a genre. I'd probably be in a cover band. And it would have to have a super pithy name. Like Diamond cover band is a Super Diamond, or The National, which is alternative band. They make a reference to a Guns N' Roses cover band, but it's all dudes with big noses. It's called Guns N' Noses. And I'm like, that is what I want. I want to be in a Guns N' Roses cover band and be called Guns N' Noses. I have a pretty good sized nose, which you can't see on screen. It would be something along those lines. I would have to give it a really good long think about what my cover band would be called. But it would probably be an 80s new wave cover band. And it would probably intersect like Aquanet hairspray with Dibbity Doo hair gel and neon colors. So something that brings those three things together with a heavy amount of synths would really sum it all up for me.
Neon colors. You're wearing, it's got your ski jacket on that's bright green with your Walkman,
Yeah,
that
100%.
whole,
100%.
hot
Parachute
tub
pants.
time machine vibe.
Another rewatchable movie. Yeah, 100%.
Totally rewatchable. Totally rewatchable. First job, very first job. And give me a learning that you had from that first job that you still use today.
First job, I mean, you can say this anymore. I was a lot boy on my uncle's car dealership. It was a Buick Volkswagen dealership. So you have huge U-boat cars, and then you have like really interesting VW inventory. That's our
You can
job,
fit two of one type of car into the other car.
right? Yeah, like you could fit like a couple VW Golfs into a Buick LeSabre. That job has cost me so much money throughout my life because it gets the car bug in you, right? And so I did that job for 4 summers, freshman year all through high school, had amazing tans, washed cars all day. But what that job teaches you, and I didn't think about it at the time, I was doing that job before I even had my driver's license. I'm driving around parking cars back then, $40,000, $50,000 cars. The used car buyer at the time had really good taste in cars. So there was always really cool inventory. The level of responsibility you learn when
Mm.
you're parking cars, detailing cars, like they hand you a car bumper and you're like, don't burn through the paint. There's no YouTube back then. I had no idea what I was doing, but I had to detail this $50,000 Porsche. Like the level of responsibility that got ingrained in me at a very young age, maybe out of fear, which is okay. It has really played itself out with me. I'm very careful when I take things on, whether it's work related, personal related, a home improvement project, anything it could be. And it just got into me at such a young age that I couldn't, not to say I don't do things that are not responsible all the time. But in terms of taking care of my stuff or being careful or being thoughtful, yeah, it's still something that stuck with me to this day.
I like that. Okay. Speaking first job and younger, around you when you were whatever type of home you were in, there might have been pictures or posters or artwork, and it was part of you as a younger age. And so you did mention your music and obviously your job, but tell me about the posters that might have been on the wall or the book that was next to you on the table or something that was read to you or a song, anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the fun things about getting older is you start to reaccumulate the stuff you had when you were a teenager, right? So
Mhm.
2023, I got laid off. I had about 6 months off, which was really unbelievable time, stressful, but unbelievable. And I started collecting vinyl, which is the wrong time to start a fairly expensive hobby. And the first thing I did was start collecting vinyl records of the cassette tapes I had in my cassette carrier when I was a kid. Or the Aha, Depeche Mode, Van Halen, all the things. I think back to what I surrounded myself with when I was young. And this has been an amazing conversation. So thank you, Andrew, for letting me go back down memory lane. I'd buy magazines and I had a box full of thumbtacks. And I would take the posters out of the middle of the magazines and I'd post them over my room. I had a heavy metal wall, I had an R&B wall, I had a new wave wall, I had a movie wall.
Oh,
And I
wow.
took that very seriously. I probably got pictures somewhere. And God, when we moved, because I lived basically in the same house my entire childhood, so many, they probably had to re rock the room because I had so many different tack holes in the walls. But that's like that at that point I was curating. I guess it was probably social media before social media. I was basically surrounding myself with my interests and the things that brought me joy.
Yeah, I didn't realize this was on, so I'll edit this out. We have something in common in that so I had an office for 10 years and I ended up getting rid of it. The building itself was going to be demolished and set up for condos. And I took that as an opportunity to say, well, my kid's older and maybe I could start working from the house and that sort of thing. And but my background, so you can see this background I'm on now, which is clearly fake. I took all my vinyl records because I'm a vinyl guy too. And I took a series of their covers and I thumbtacked them to the wall.
Love that.
And so when you were seeing me on Zoom or Teams, all you saw in the background were the covers. And there probably wasn't any Zoom or Teams call where someone didn't recognize a music interest that they have. And
Mhm.
someone would say, is that Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA? Or is that Men at Work? Or is that Diana Ross? Or is that Ella Fitzgerald? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, it's bizarre. But it was missed that wall.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
have a virtual background on it as well. I've got a series of I've got Prince and Freddie Mercury and Red Rocks, and I've got like I'm surrounded by it still. Turns out, and I didn't put the two together until just now, but I'm basically my 13-year-old self. My entire office is all the things I love hanging on the walls.
that's awesome.
And yeah, before I started doing virtual background, it to your point, it always led to a conversation. Somebody'd be like, oh, I saw Prince at the tap room in downtown Minneapolis in '84, and he was amazing. And he invited me back to Paisley Park. And it's, we talk about connection. It really isn't only the people you work with. It's like when I'm on vendor calls or when I'm meeting with consultants or anybody, anything you could do to find a real, not the fake kind of connection, but a real connection. I think that just gives people a window into who you are.
Yeah. I'll admit that was not to make it about the podcast too much, but as I've been listening to, and I listen to podcasts while I'm working out, and they're really invaluable. But I mix it up. I go way outside the work world and listen to history and documentaries as well. But the personal connection isn't always there about these dialogues. And I don't care who you listen to, but there tends to be a theme. And I would thought that it was missing a level of humanity unless the occupation was very human. Naturally, you're listening to a member of the clergy or you're listening to a social worker or a psychologist, and they're talking about their interactions. But I think it's great that you and I recognize that there's that ability for personal connection when the Zoom screen is off.
Yes. Yeah.
So best supervisor that you worked with, just no names, but just tell me about him or her.
This is a cop out. But I'm going to tell you, I think I am the sum of 15 people that have been my leader, my supervisor, my manager over the years.
Okay.
And I feel like I've taken, I don't want to use the cake analogy again, but I feel like I've taken a little bit from each of them, whether it was them giving it to me or me saying that's something I really appreciate. That is maybe who I am. And now, because I'm on the back nine of my career, I want to be part of that story for somebody else in a very real way. Here's the 3 things I think I'm good as a leader. These are the things I want to impart. Take them if you want. One person in particular, probably my all-time favorite leader. Initially, when I met them, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know if it's going to work. And as time went on and we got to know each other and I really saw what they were trying to do with me, it was like, I look back on it now and I didn't even really appreciate it in the moment. I'm like, that was so transformative, what they did with me at that time, that's a gift I can never repay.
Next question. You can't use a phone for a month. What do you substitute it with? By the way, that includes like the mobile devices. This isn't just the audio.
It's not like you go dark, right? I still need something, some kind of stimuli to keep me going. I'd probably exercise more. I'd probably listen to more music, real media. I'm one of those weirdos that collects cassettes and CDs and vinyl. My brother's probably got one of the biggest Laserdisc collections on the West Coast.
Wow.
Who does Laserdisc anymore? But I feel like if the world burns, at least I've cut my media. Like, I'll have some way to nourish myself. And yeah, like, phones quit working tomorrow for a month. I think I'd totally be okay with that. I think the first thing is being okay with the fact that you're not going to be totally plugged into what's happening on the planet. But in terms of ways to keep yourself entertained and inspired between books and everything else, I'm probably not as good of a reader as I should be. I listen to way more books via my phone than I do actually physically turning the pages, which I don't think is terribly uncommon these days. But because of my interest in like having physical media, I think I'd be perfectly okay.
You talk about audible books. I obviously read a lot of artificial intelligence regulations. And there's the name and likeness concept that was like the Elvis Act in Tennessee, and there's others. And I thought, okay, I totally get it and I totally appreciate it. But wouldn't that just be awesome if like Sam Elliott could read every single book to me? Right. And
yeah,
Morgan Freeman would be the narrator of the how-to book on how to build my deck.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
it does do it. Wonder how much more
be,
palatable it is.
Yeah, maybe.
I listened to Sam Elliott, went to high school too far for me, and he lives, his family lives in the area, and I've got a fondness for him, but he could take the most, and maybe take him to your point, take the most undesirable thing that you don't want to do, but Sam Elliott is narrating. Right.
That's true. Name an expensive business mistake you made or that you observed. So you didn't have to do it yourself. And what did you learn from it?
Yeah. Worked for a large bank, Fortune 50 company for 23 years. My 450,000 person company. I had a pretty good sized budget that was in my chair. And learning the difference between driving business value or doing something because it interests you or on a hunch, you're going to do it and then being so overzealous about it. And then it just fizzles. And I'm a big proponent of test and learn. I am, but the learning part can get really expensive. I've made massive mistakes, very expensive mistakes. It's not my own money, but in ways it is my own money. I treat it as if it's my own. And leaning into technologies, and we talked about this closet full of dead technology. There are some technologies. I leaned into AI way too early. I was late with mobile. There's just lots of things I have done that have had very expensive business outcomes. That part of that comes with the job, which I get, but hopefully it in my mind, you dust yourself off and you just try to make yourself smarter the next time.
I like that. All right. So we are done with the standard questions. And now it is time to go into what I call the lightning round. It is a set of questions that you don't know I'm going to ask you. And for our listeners, if you go to my LinkedIn page, you'll see a featured article that lists all of these. So Aaron was well prepped, making that assumption. And now I'm going to ask him a set of questions he does not know that I'm going to ask him. So are you ready? Now, hold on. First of all, these are usually binary questions, so I'll give you choices. And then at the end, I'm going to give you a series of word associations. Okay. Valentine's Day, flowers or chocolates?
Chocolates,
Museum or aquarium?
aquarium,
Chocolate caramel or chocolate pretzels?
boom, chocolate pretzels,
Black or red licorice?
black,
Pool or beach?
beach,
Hike or bike?
bike,
Can you go on speaker in public?
no,
Cocktail, wine, sparkling water, or mocktail?
cocktail,
Okay, now here come your word associations. Disney,
lines,
race,
F1,
boat,
yacht,
journey.
Steve Perry,
Say that again.
Steve Perry,
Steve Bear. Shoes.
Nike.
That's it, man.
That's fun.
That's-
I had way too much fun. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time to jump on and giving our listeners a little bit about you. And we got TA week coming up, and I think sometimes you get speakers up on a stage or on a screen, and there's this disconnect. Who is this person, and why should I lean in? They're there for their professional reasons, but there's probably that personal connection that you can have with that person. And so that's what this is about. I appreciate your time. Our audience, this is the second part of this. And so both of them will probably be 30 good minutes that you can throw on the treadmill. So you can listen to Aaron and I as he sweat it out, and wishing you good health. Aaron, again, thank you. And everyone who's listening, thank you for attending the Reciprocity with AG podcast. Aaron, any final thoughts?
No, I'm looking forward to presenting. I do encourage you to tune in and please ask questions. Virtual presentations are so tricky. So please, your engagement means the world.
Thanks, everybody. See you next time.